Now it's become tradition in Scotland when you do climb a hill like this that when you get to the top you've got to bag the SNP and shout, "Humza Yousaf Safani!" You know, there's people that would say to that, "That's racist, Tom, you did a racism." They're the same sort of idiots that when you ask them why they voted SNP, it's pretty much, well, it's got the word Scottish in it, and Humza seems like a nice man, and I think Nicola Sturgeon really cares about us. Something different today. Some of you Aussies wanted to know more about my trip to Scotland a few months ago, so I recorded some footage as I took a jaunt up my local hills, along with random commentary on whatever came to mind, including some thoughts on Humza Yousaf, the Scottish National Party, and the ever-expanding government we've got in Scotland and Australia. Alright. So today, now that sheep has finished pissing, I'm going to show you a bit of the Scottish countryside. I started off at Gateside, I'm going to walk up to the Bunnetstane, up the West Lowland, then along to the East Lowland, before going down into the town of Falkland, where I might be lucky to find a pub that's still open and I can have a pint. Alright, so this is the Bunnetstane. Why is it called the Bunnetstane? I actually don't know. I'm assuming because it's a stone and it's in the shape of a bunnet. I don't know, I'll look it up when I get home. So at the first stop on the walk that I mentioned, the Bunnetstane, you can see back to where I started, which was the wee town of Gateside. So I walked all the way up there, made pals with the sheep, and got to the Bunnetstane. Just next to the Bunnetstane you've got what's called the Maiden Bower, which is a man-made cave, and the story goes that long, long ago this was a meeting point for two young lovers of rival families, and when the family of one of them found out, they ambushed the young lad and killed him. The lassie saw it and she lived here as a kind of recluse forevermore, but who knows what's true about that. And this is inside the cave. The Bunnetstane, or Bonnet Stone, is a distinctively shaped rock outcrop in Fife, Scotland. The stone is about 20 feet long, 10 feet wide and just over 3 feet thick. The stone's appearance as a strangely balancing rock has led to intriguing theories about its origins. Legends claim the rock served as a Pictish king's tombstone or a druid altar. However, the rock's warped look is actually just the result of natural erosion. Beneath the Bunnetstane, carved into the rock, is a human-made cave known as the Maiden's Bower. It supposedly takes its name from a romantic story in which a young woman, after seeing her lover ambushed and killed near the rock, chose to live there for the rest of her life. However, more likely explanations are that the cave was the first excavation, the Maiden Bower, of a 19th century geological survey, or that it was created as a bothy for shepherds. I tell you what, the calves are getting a workout. Oi! We're almost at the summit now of the West Lowland once we go up that track, but if we just turn this way, and it's hard to see with the glare, there's Loch Leven, which is quite a small loch, but it's got a number of islands on it, and on one of them there's an old, I don't think it was a castle, but there's an old building, and that is where Mary, Queen of Scots, was imprisoned sometime in the 1500s. I believe that's where she abdicated her throne, but she did later escape from that imprisonment. It is an actual castle. I am ashamed to say that I have never visited it. Loch Leven is linked to many colourful events and famous characters, royal visitors and royal prisoners alike, but the island stronghold is best known as the place where Mary, Queen of Scots, was held prisoner for almost a year. Mary, Queen of Scots' first visit Mary, Queen of Scots. Little known fact, she was actually a personal trainer. She'll get you whipped into shape. Mary, Queen of Scots, first visited Loch Leven in 1561 as a guest of its owner Sir William Douglas. Her last stay in 1567-68 was as his prisoner. While at Loch Leven, Mary suffered a miscarriage of twins, likely fathered by her third husband, the Earl of Bothwell. I heard once that she fell ill immediately after she was imprisoned, and it was likely a poisoning. She was compelled to abdicate her throne in favour of her infant son, James VI. In May 1568, Mary escaped across the loch and was in exile in England later that month. She never saw her native land again. I should really make a point of visiting next time I'm back. This is the top of the West Lomond with the East Lomond in the distance. That's where we're going next. All around we can see the Kingdom of Fife. Now it's become tradition in Scotland when you do climb a hill like this that when you get to the top you've got to bag the SNP and shout, "Humza Yousaf Safani!" You know, there's people that would say to that, "That's racist, Tom, you did a racism." They're the same sort of idiots that when you ask them why they voted SNP, it's pretty much, well, it's got the word Scottish in it, and Humza seems like a nice man, and I think Nicola Sturgeon really cares about us. Coming down from the West Lomond where we just were when we were shouting at Humza Yousaf, we're going to go down the hill and there's a path that's going to take us all the way across to the East Lomond, and we'll do another video up there. Do that again, we're going to zoom in. East Lomond. I think the Lomond Hills are both extinct volcanoes, at least that's what I used to think at school. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm pretty sure Edinburgh Castle sits on a volcanic plug. I remember the geography teacher telling us that at high school. She'd said it was a volcanic plug and she'd teach us about pyramidal peaks and oxbow lakes. It was all very exciting. Also, fun fact, locally the Lomond Hills are sometimes known as the Tits of Fife. Why is that? Well, because they rise up above the landscape like two very misshapen breasts. If anyone does want to come to Fife and wants to do this walk, it's not that strenuous. I know I was sweating earlier, but that's because I started off going up the steep hill at the Gateside part of it, and you don't even have to do that one. If you want a shorter walk, you can start in Falkland, walk up the hill and only do the East Lomond. From there you still get a great view around Fife, and then you can go back into Falkland after, which is a beautiful little town. And you can visit the palace, which unfortunately is closed at the moment. I think it's seasonal, so I think it's closed from November through to, I don't know, March or something. So make sure you check that before visiting. Generally, I would suggest coming in the summer. Even though it's November, I've got very lucky with the weather. It usually wouldn't be like this. I'm now at the top of the other hill, the East Lomond, or the smaller of the two tits that I mentioned. At the bottom of this hill you'll find the town of Falkland. So there is the West Lomond over there. In the distance you probably won't see it, but it's a town at Gateside. If I come this way there's a town called Strathmiglo. Along a bit further, Auchtermuchty, Dunshelt. And then if I walk over here you'll see over here the town of Falkland with the palace that I was talking about earlier, which you can see right in there. If I zoom out, over in that direction you've got a whole bunch of towns, Cooper, Ladybank, Springfield. Way over in the distance, you might not see on camera, but it's Dundee, and way beyond that is hills way beyond Dundee. Up in the other direction, those hills way in the distance are way past Perth, I believe. Yeah, they will be. Way beyond Perth. If we look on the other side, way out that way, but you won't see it, will be St Andrews. As we come over here, there's the town of Glenrothes on this side of the hill. Way in the distance, you won't see it, Kirkcaldy. Across the water is Edinburgh. On a really good day, you can see Edinburgh from over here. So next phase for us is to go down this path through the forest and to Falkland. See if we can get a pint down there. Well, it turned out that I was able to get a pint down in Falkland, but I got lazy and I didn't really film anything to end the video on. The reason I was doubtful if I could get a pint or not is it's not that I was maybe going to miss closing time, but because so many privately owned businesses in Scotland such as small town pubs, have been gradually going out of business over the last few decades. I mean, I remember there used to be at least 4 pubs in Falkland. Only one was open when I was there, the Covenanter, which was nice and cosy inside. I highly recommend it. Unfortunately, the other 3 have all closed down. And Falkland is probably doing better than other towns as it's got a decent amount of tourists stopping by even in the winter. Auchtermuchty, which is just down the road, is a bigger town and must have had 5 or 6 pubs when I was growing up. And they were real centres of the community, and all of them were able to survive financially. Now there's only one of those pubs left, and it's not really a community pub anymore. All the other pubs gradually went out of business, and anyone who came in to try and keep one of them going would be lucky if they lasted a year. I mean, fair play to the new owners of the Boar's Head. I went in when I was back. It's a bit fancier, a bit pricier. They've turned it into an award-winning gastropub. The food was amazing, but it's not something that most locals could afford to enjoy, and it appears that they're getting their trade from tourists and maybe from the more privileged Scottish people from a bit further afield. Businesses just simply cannot survive. It's a mix of increased operational costs and having to pay tribute up to the government that's killing them. But of course, if you're working for government or a local council, or if you're one of Scotland's army of social workers, then you'll be doing just fine. No need for you to worry about where your wages are coming from. I mean, how else is government supposed to generate some revenue to pay all of their keyboard tappers? Oh, you need a pay rise? Better hit up the taxpayer. People are just packing it up. They're saying, why work my arse off to make a tiny bit of money for myself while I fund the local government through all of these rates and fees? I may as well just jack it in and get myself a government job and chill out. It's a form of universal basic income, and it will destroy ambition, drive, innovation, and Australia has to take notice with its overstaffed public service, who are always making the case for even more funding. Take the NDIS, for example, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, an oversubscribed disability welfare system. Now, if you increase disability funding by billions, what do you think is going to happen? You'll find a load more people who find a way to fit the disability criteria, and a whole load of people who find a way to benefit from offering a disability service that they can bill the government for. Now, that's not the type of small business I encourage. It's just a scam service. And all of this is impossible to have an adult conversation about, because you hit a wall of midwits who just say, oh, so you don't care about disabled people, huh? You don't think there should be some taxpayer-funded services for the disabled, which is obviously not what I'm saying at all. I mean, what is the NDIS funding? Did I read somewhere 40 billion? I mean, that cannot be right. Someone tell me I've got that wrong. It cannot be right. I mean, how many scams would be taking a chunk of that 40 billion? I mean, wasn't there a story about how people were claiming sex toys on their NDIS allowance? The scheme just incentivizes humans giving up. It's absolutely disgusting. Anyway, to finish off this weird video, which is a mix of tourism, hill walking and political ranting, Falkland is picturesque. Please do pop in if you visit Scotland. I guess there's probably day trips you can take from Edinburgh. Some might have recognised it from this video as one of the locations Outlander was filmed in. The palace really is something. You kind of take it for granted when you grow up in this area, but please check before you go, as it is closed over winter. Also on the palace grounds is the oldest real tennis court in Britain, built in 1538. Real tennis is a bit different to current day tennis, but I'll let you find some tennis historian online to teach you more about that. I think it's also known as royal tennis. Just doing my bit for Tourism Scotland. Remember, Humza Yousaf's a fanny, and make sure to ridicule your local government department today. I'll leave you with some photos of the tits of Fife sticking out over the clouds.